So welcome everyone, good evening. Tonight is our wellness webinar. It's my pleasure this week to step in. Alternate weeks I share with Dr. David Silverman. I'm Dr. Carolyn Hoffman, traditional naturopath, and I do a bunch of other things in terms of digestive health, just a lot of tools for helping clients stay healthy. And I'm based out of Charlottesville, Virginia. It's been my pleasure to be part of this company now for about 3 years, nearly, coming up soon, in sharing this technology. And we want to welcome everyone and anyone who's on the call who is here to learn this evening. I want to thank you for your time, because the person that invited you truly cares about you. And we're going to offer you the opportunity to have a gift. And I truly hope that at the end of it, that you think like we do, that it's important to pay that gift forward to other people, because it's not necessarily this information is going to be for you. It might be for someone that you know, or someone that they know, but we know that this is the way life goes, that someone out there is definitely looking for the information that we have. And it's our pleasure, all of us who are committed to this as volunteer army, to spend our time sharing this information forward. So I hope that you will do the same. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just run through some information here. Let's have a look on our slideshow. There we go. Then we'll talk about, whoops, let's go back. Sorry, hang on, let's stop that share. And let me just go back and put it onto the right screen. And bear with me a second here from the beginning. That would help. Oh, no, that's not from the beginning. All right, we'll just roll it back that way since it's being stubborn. All right, so I appreciate your time. And what we're going to talk about tonight is ASEA. It's a cellular global health company. And its mission is very much to better the lives of people and to be a force for good in the world. And it's kind of an appealing piece to many of us, and you'll kind of see why that is as we go through. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about something that impacts the health and wellness of you and your pets. And we know we have a few people on the line who love their animals, so you can benefit them too. Maybe it's your family or your friends that could benefit from this information. Maybe you would love to know of the anti-aging benefits, both from the inside out and the outside in. And I will say that it's not an exaggeration when I say, have you ever watched one of those films where they're on a hunt for the holy grail of eternal life and they find the elixir and they're going to stay young forever? Well, we can't guarantee that you're going to stay young forever or you'll live forever, but I truly think that what we have here is pretty much as close as it gets to the holy grail of anti-aging, not simply anti-aging, but really very much reverse aging. And so the notion that we maybe can look as young as we looked 10 years ago in 10 years' time is pretty appealing for many of us, and we'll show you why that is true. And athletic performance. Maybe you know people who are professional athletes, maybe you're just a weekend warrior, or maybe you just want to stay athletically engaged right to the end, no matter how old you are. I think everybody that's on this call and that has invited people to be part of it is definitely in the space of proactive lifestyle. This notion that we do everything possible to make ourselves as disease resistant as we can and stay healthy all the way through our lives. And certainly I'm sure everybody's focused on what can I do to be proactive at this point in time as the world as a whole is challenged by what's going on. And the other piece, which I think is what drives people and why they're all on this call, is having been bitten by the bug of a purpose-driven living, the potential of actually sharing something that's really important to people and makes a change to their health, but actually creates the opportunity to have a living as we do it. And I think that this is also pretty timely because so many people are struggling at the moment financially. And what this is really that plan B before we need a plan B. So let's look at, this is very much the start of the next wave as far as I'm concerned. So going forward, we're looking at this field of redox signaling molecules, which we're going to talk about, which is really fueling the next 30 years of where health is going to go. The last 20 odd years, I've spent very much involved in the vitamins and the minerals and the antioxidants, the exotic juices piece, and to some extent the oils, but that is not what we're here to talk about now. ASEA, the company, is very much a category creator. It's created this field of a commercially available form of redox signaling molecules with patented technology. And even after 10 years, it's actually still the only company in this field. On the left, you may look at here Dr. James Watson, well known for his double helix DNA discovery and his Nobel Award. He has currently moved his whole research into redox signaling. And he's postulated in the Lancet back in 2014 that major diseases are actually caused by a lack of redox signaling molecules. He's even specifically written on the fact that diabetes is a redox deficiency. So we know that we're really on the cutting edge of something pretty significant here that's going to affect everything in our health. And if you're the type of person that's sitting there maybe going, well, it's interesting, but I've never heard of this. Well, you know what? I think unfortunately, it's not possible for any of us to have heard of everything. And the way that information and science is galloping along in this day and age, there's no way that we can keep up with every discovery. But that does not mean that it's true. Or isn't true, let's put it that way. So if you want to go to the PubMed.gov, the NIH peer-reviewed library, you'll probably see if you just type in redox, there's about 200,000 studies on what science is showing to be true. There's about 18,000 studies on redox signaling, about 1,400 different publications, and you can see some of those books on the screen. And if you go to Google Scholar, the grey papers is amassing towards the 500,000 mark on what these redox molecules do. So what we're talking about here tonight is not the discovery of redox molecules. That's been established back in the 90s. It's not what they do mechanically for the body and physiologically for the body, but we're going to talk about a new development that's stabilized them so that we have the first commercially available product technology. 21 years of research has gone on and 21 years of actual meetings in Paris where all the brightest minds in the world come together and they actually discuss the newest fields of redox biochemistry and its effects and benefits in the healthcare industry. So this is a well-researched field. Cornell has a department on it. You'll see many universities and medical centers now actually have departments in redox studies. You'll see, for example, the University of Colorado has a redox biology unit, Vanderbilt University, and many others around the world. So this is not a new field. It's been going on since the 90s, but you may not have heard about it, but that doesn't mean that it's not an incredibly important breakthrough. In some ways considered maybe the greatest health breakthrough of our lifetime at this point. And the Huffington Post actually wrote in 2016 an article that listed redox scientific signaling technology as one of the 5 emerging technologies in science that's likely to shape the lives of us to come. And they talked about the fact that here we have this emerging technology that you can actually insert these healthy redox signaling molecules back into your body, help repair and replenish aging cells. Well, I know for definite that that was one of the reasons that it appealed to me. Who wouldn't want to repair and replenish aging cells and slow that whole process down? Kind of makes common sense, right? And especially if it's something that you've got here, which is what we're going to talk about, that is non-toxic and certainly native to the body. And since we're made up entirely of those cells, as it said, that, you know, that every organ can definitely benefit from that new technology. And why is that? Well, if we think about the common sense piece that every single cell in the body actually regenerates these redox molecules. Every single cell, if it's healthy, composes some different kind of organ system. So whether it's your heart, or whether it's your lungs, or it's your thyroid area, your hormones, if it's your stomach or skeletal system, they're all made up of cells. We're made up of about 70 to 100 trillion of them. And obviously, if they're functioning independently in an accurate way and doing all the things that they need to do, wherever they're located, those organs are going to stay in tip-top condition. That is just the essence of health. So if we go deeper into those cells, the key piece in there, the PowerPoint piece, is that mitochondria. So that's going to orchestrate cellular function overall. It produces something called ATP through the Krebs cycle, which you may well remember from biology back in school, and adenosine triphosphate. So that's the kind of generating energy function for every cell of the body. It also produces these things called redox signaling molecules. And this is now a contraction that's come down to the word redox, and that is from the reductants, those negative spin-offs, the negative charges, and the oxidants, the positive charges. So it's a balanced pair of molecules that's part of that ATP production. And our body makes them by using the cellular saline inside of every cell. And if you think about that, even if you haven't really considered it, it's pretty obvious that when we go into the hospital, they will tap us into a saline drip. And that's because every cell is made up of salt and water. That's that sodium, chloride, hydrogen, and oxygen. And what they found is that this is critical communication for every single cell in the body. But redox molecules also do an awful lot more than that. They really control our health. They help the immune system do its key function, which is to detect when there's a problem, to protect the body, which will really be key at the moment. I think everybody's looking for ways to make sure that we can protect our health to the optimum level possible. And it enables the body to repair. So if you think about the fact that when you cut yourself, you'll see that around that cut, it gets red and inflamed. That's the oxidants, that's those positive charges coming in. And what they're doing is calling those negative charges in to actually help the body heal that cut. And you'll watch that gradually close up, and eventually the skin will change, the healing is finished, and the skin looks normal again. That's repair. But maybe it's also about replacing aging cells in particular. So as a cell ages, it has a process called apoptosis. That means death of a cell. And the body should get rid of those aged cells and actually pop in nice, healthy new ones. Well, why is that? Well, because we want to keep healthy as we get older. We don't want to start and finish with the same cells that we had when we were young. In fact, we're changing them out completely in 7 years, but many of them will change a lot more than just that once in that 7-year period. But let's suppose that the message to be eliminated, if this is an old and aged cell or it's a faulty cell, and that faulty cell starts replicating itself time and time and time again, well, we all know that that's not a healthy function for the body, and very often that ends up in an organ where a doctor gives you a diagnosis that you really don't want to hear. So hearing the fact that there's a problem with the cell and detecting it and replacing and repairing is the process of healing that the body does in order to maintain health. And we basically can't exist without these molecules. And so why are they so important? Why would we want to reinsert them in our body if we're getting older? Well, if you think of these glasses as replicants of youth, on the left-hand side with a glass full of water, but full of molecules. And as you watch this, it's a steady decline as we move through age. So by the time we're about 60, we've got about 50% of what we originally had. And the challenge is that what we do have actually is less efficient. So it's really not working at the same level as it did when we were young. And we kind of know that, because if we think about children or grandchildren, or just looking around us at people who are younger, children in particular have boundless amounts of energy. You know, they're never fatigued by running around all day. They bounce up and they do it again the next day. If they cut themselves, they heal quickly. And they just have a way to stay healthier and regenerate and be much more optimally energetic than we are as we age. And so that is just part of the aging process, the loss of the redox at 1% per year from around 10 to 13 years old. That's pretty young, really. So it's important for us to be able to say, what if we have that opportunity to reinsert, as they talked about in the Huffington Post, to reinsert these back in our body on a daily basis to really fill up that glass again. So what if you could actually rebuild those molecules so that your body could perform much more like it did 10 or maybe 20 years ago? And those of us who've been on redox for quite a while will probably attest to the fact that we might be 60, but we probably feel like we're 40, and we probably act the same way. So, you know, if you're not feeling as optimal as you would love to feel, and you've noticed that whole process of aging, maybe your skin is showing it more, you know, the wrinkles on the outside are really a wrinkle reflection from the inside. But if you want to rebuild that, you have this first opportunity now to put yourself back to a place where you used to be when you were a little younger. So here's the breakthrough piece. We know that in the 90s, they discovered how important these molecules were. and they can generate them in little machines, but they don't really hang around for very long because they're highly reactive molecules. You could kind of think of them a bit like firework, and so it makes common sense to us if a firework fires off, it's gone. You know, once it's gone, it's gone. You can't kind of hang on to it, hold on to it, collect it in any shape or form. And so scientifically, when studying them, everybody said, well, if you have something that can only last about 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, in reality, how can we actually do anything to stabilize them outside of the body? And they always thought this was impossible. Dr. Gary Samuelson, who's an atomic medical physicist, was tasked with taking the research that had been done for about 10 years by a publicly traded company who was playing around with these molecules, even though they didn't really understand what they were. And in the process of running out of money, this technology and research and the patents to that point were given to him to see if he could do something with them. First off, to establish what they were. He established they were redox signaling molecules, and then to do what was considered to be entirely impossible, to stabilize these highly fleeting molecules outside the human body in a way that changed history, basically. And so the challenge would be, and the example would be, if we had a bottle and it was empty, and I would say, well, our challenge is to fill the bottom of it with hot water. We're going to top the rest of it up with ice cold water. And the challenge would be, keep those two bodies of water not only apart and separate, but stabilize them as they were, hot and cold, and make that exist for 15 months. Well, you know, anyone listening to that knows that that's not physically possible, right? It's going to come back and just become a bottle of lukewarm water, if anything else, and then eventually be cold. So that is probably why the founder of the company decided he needed an atomic medical physicist to do something that was physically impossible. But Gary Samuelson was responsible for finding out how to stabilize these bioactive positive and negative charges in a way that keeps them ready to be usable in the human body once we consume them. So I consider this our personal 911 for the complexity of our communication system. Disease to me, or rather, let me talk about the absence of disease is not health, and the absence of symptoms is not health either. We're looking at something much deeper when we go into that cellular level. However, if our house was on fire, the fire alarm wouldn't go off immediately. You know, the smoke and the fire would do a sufficient amount of damage, and then the fire alarm would go off. That would alert us to the fact that we need to do something about that. We need to put out that fire. Now, if you've got common sense, you certainly wouldn't pull the plug on the fire alarm and say, I'm sick of that noise, right? I just don't want to hear it, and not deal with the fire. But in some respects, in my mind, that's often how we handle things with drugs. Drugs will turn off that fire alarm, but it doesn't address the fact that we have a fire burning underneath. Now, if it's our home, we're going to grab our cell phone, right? And we're going to call for the fire brigade to come and sort the problem out. Well, if you're out in the country maybe, or it's just a bad day when you have bad cell signal, it doesn't matter how good that phone is, you're not going to be able to connect to the fire station. They're not going to hear where you are. They're not going to be able to find you and come and solve the problem. So our goal is to amplify the signaling, and this is part of what redox does. It amplifies the signaling so that the fire station can hear where we are and it can come and put out that fire. For me, it was kind of interesting because what that fire engine and all of the equipment represent is all the things that I felt like I was working in before. It was the vitamins and the minerals and all those other tools to give to the body to try to solve a problem. But the aha and the what if came for me when I read the books and I started delving into why had my husband, who had been challenged for 20 odd years with not being able to exercise and breathe adequately without support, suddenly seeing this huge shift in his health in 2 weeks. And it's like, what can make this difference where nothing else on that fire truck had managed to do it? And as I read the books, I thought, well, I wonder what if this is the missing link? That if you have all these materials on the fire truck, but you don't have the signal, then you can't put them together. And of course, that was exactly what the case is. And so I've seen this amazing shift in people's health when we add the signaling, which is really like the labor and the delivery to make use of those tools. And as part of that, what we have is the world's only cell signaling supplement on the market. So ASEA redox cell signaling supplement. So you may have heard me talk about the fact that it's salt and water because that's what's in our cells. Now it's interesting that we have just had a neuroscientist join our group who delved deep into the information. And she did what a lot of people do. They don't necessarily go to Google Scholar, they just go out onto Google. And we know that Google is rather like the bathroom wall of the internet. People can write whatever they want, and you'll definitely see things on there, just as I did, such as, it's a scam, it's salt water. And she said, well, I wanted to know why people wrote that. And I did a lot of deep research into it. And she said, I realized that sodium chloride, this saline, is nothing more than just a carrier for all of these redox signaling molecules. But how would you and I know that it's redox signaling molecules? Because if we actually look at the label, what do? We look at the ingredients, which is sodium chloride and water. So the average person without research is going to say, well, that's just salt and water. I can go home and pour a glass of water and stick some salt in and I got redox molecules. Well, no, you haven't. So how do we know? Because we want to know that what we're purchasing is not just salt and water, but it actually is redox signaling molecules. So Bioagilitics on the left-hand side is a research facility that supports the FDA requirement that probably about 80% of the pharmaceutical companies will utilize to validate their drugs, and the manufacturing meets the standards required in the drug industry. Well, in this field, nobody needs to have that because it's nutrition and the FDA doesn't require that. But good companies go the length and they spend more money on making sure that their products are tested for purity, consistency, and solvency. So Bioagilitics partners with ASEA, and ASEA has every batch tested and checked by Bioagilitics, and that's why you will see on the bottle their stamp of approval. You can probably see a little bit there. Bioagilitics actually proves that what's in the bottle is actually certified redox signaling molecules. NC State campus and other places do a lot of research on behalf of ASEA, and a lot of that is to do with the Olympic athletes and the professional athletes. But I'm going to talk about the Torrent Labs study. Torrent Labs is a genetics laboratory up in Salt Lake City. You may well be familiar with Ancestry.com, and they do a lot of the research for them. And they ran a study, and what they wanted to look at was, did ASEA redox impact in a positive way gene signaling pathways? This to me blew me out of the water, because what they found was on an 8-week study of people who were healthy, average age of around 35, those people drinking the ASEA redox had a 20 to 31% improvement in 5 gene signaling pathways. And that wasn't just a few of them, that was 100% of people drinking the ASEA. The saline on the other side, which is just the plain saline that they take through a 3-day electrical process to break the bonds in the same way that the body does in a nanosecond, and reconvert it and reassemble it identically to the redox molecules inside of us. That saline was what they gave the placebo group, and the placebo group had a 0% response. Those are statistics that, anyone who really knows research knows that that is just something you don't see. So it was really important for me to know that here we have this phenomenal report to show that redox is changing 100% of people that are benefiting from it. And it changed and improved the cardiovascular system, the immune system, digestive, hormone signaling pathway, and inflammation. And if we look behind it, the EGR1 is actually the inflammatory signaling pathway. I want to show you this because what it means is it's not just one door to the word inflammation, it actually opens another 15 doors. And some of those are really influential. If we think about serotonin, sitting along the gut, 80% of our serotonin is in the gut. So if we've got gut problems, we've probably got cognitive problems, and really speaks to why people can feel a lot happier when their serotonin receptors are improved. Circadian rhythm. So if anyone's ever been challenged with a lousy night's sleep or doesn't sleep well on a regular basis, there would be something to want to have signaling at its optimal level. The NRF2 pathway was kind of interesting. I was deep into the weeds of this in 2011, and I turned down looking at ASEA back in 2011. It took me till 2017 to pay attention. But that pathway is our own internal capacity to produce antioxidant enzymes, way, way, way more powerful than any antioxidant supplement that we can produce. And we're doing it constantly, 24/7, trillions and trillions of these molecules from such things as glutathione, such things as superoxide dismutase. Glutathione would be really critical at this point in time because we know that it is infinitely and connected to about 80 major diseases. And specifically as we get older, it's something that drops off dramatically. And if we're old and we're sick, we have even less of it, and the body begins to not know how to regenerate. So it is a really important component to overall health. You might look at the insulin signaling that we said Dr. Watson actually talked about. So that's that diabetes pathway, and human thyroid stimulating. So a lot of benefits beyond simply the word inflammation. 5 years later, after this was first discovered, they actually found a way to stabilize those liquid molecules in a gel technology. Remember that they're very fleeting, so they had to find something that wouldn't make them work before they actually put them on our skin. And it was called Renew 28. They sent the product out to Dermatest in Germany, and you can see their mark down there. They are a highly regarded research facility that does a lot of work in the cosmetic industry, and they validate and rate different products on the market. And they gave us a 5-star rating. And you can see in that 28-day study that they did, you're looking at examples of 16% skin cell renewal in 28 days. Well, I don't know about you, but who wouldn't want to have their skin rejuvenate itself at least 16% within a month? I think it's a lot to do with why we all see huge benefits from the skin by using this as a product on a daily basis, morning and evening, but there's many other benefits to it. ASEA also was shown over a 96-hour period to continuously increase the blood flow. Well, blood flow we know is really important because you're helping to put circulation in, you're helping to take toxins out, and obviously good quality skin needs good blood flow. And seeing is believing. So, here's an example of that 28-day benefit. This is Dr. Marty Marin. He's an NIH veterinary researcher, and he did his own clinical study of one, and he decided to put the Renew 28 on just one side of his face. And you can kind of see, if you were to draw a line down the center there, the change in that 28-day period and the labial folds in the face and around the mouth. It was really pretty significant until his wife said, would you put it on the other side, please, and kind of look more normal. Part of those 28-day studies, here's some other examples of changes to wrinkles in the neck area, to inflammation that is very much part of the life of teenagers, to skin damage as we get older, and to fine lines. But it's not just for the face, it is an all-over body skincare treatment, and we look at it here in terms of benefits to the arms, the knees, and even to dry skin on the heels. But if you remember, I said to you that to me, it's really much like the holy grail of anti-aging. And I love this photo of Rosie because here's an example of what should not be happening, right? We all don't expect to actually look younger at 87 than we did when we were 84. But that's what happens from working on the inside out and the outside in. And so when you consume and replenish on a basis the liquid, you're actually changing skin cells from the inside. And then when you apply the gel from the outside, you're really benefiting that skin from the outside. But there is also another benefit to this, which is how I validated that there was even a use for this, or got my own sense of the importance of this particular technology. It's when things hurt. So if you have something that's uncomfortable or doesn't move so well, it was a great way to test it out on my patients. And every time somebody came in who had something, some degree of discomfort, I would say, I'm trying out a new product. Can you tell me what you get out of this? And here's how you use it. I would tell you to shake it up because it's the same as the liquid inside the bottle, except, as I say, it's a gel, and you can kind of see that it's totally clear. What we do is we would rate something that was uncomfortable, and I did this with people who had future hip replacements, or maybe they had discomfort in their sinuses, or they maybe had a lot of head discomfort that day, or they'd broken a toe. And I just said, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10 how bad that is, and we would rate it, and then we would use this 3 times in 5 minutes. So a lot of people have discomfort around the shoulders or the elbows or the knees or the back. Any of those would work really well. And so you just apply this 3 times in 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, re-rate it and see what happens. Dr. David Silverman always talks about the fact that if you're interested in the purpose-driven living out of this, and you actually feel like a plan B is important for you, this is a great way to get your own validation. Don't wait for your own personal experience. Go put it out on at least 10 people and watch what happens. And so I listened carefully to him, and I did that. And I will tell you that 100% of people saw an improvement. Sometimes that went from an 8 to a 0 in under 10 minutes. Sometimes it went from an 8 to a 5, and we'd reapply it and change things. But it's the way that I would encourage anybody to go find out for themselves the benefits of what they have on their hands. And this is not an analgesic. This is a concentrated amount of the redox molecules, and you're putting it back wherever communication is not functioning, because we wouldn't have that discomfort, we wouldn't have that restriction of movement if our cells were communicating within themselves and between themselves. And by actually applying it, you can really start to help activate the body to do what it's designed to do, which is heal, because we're not actually treating anything or diagnosing or curing anything with this. We're just rebuilding the things that our body uses to do the work itself. They added to it a full skincare line, and that is the cleanser and the moisturizer. They don't have redox in them, but they are actually designed to be synergistic with the redox. They're oxygen attractors, they're pH balancers, and they actually also have a probiotic for skin health in the moisturizer. And the little dark bottle tube is a more intense version again of the redox. It's 10 times more concentrated, and people will use that for fine lines and wrinkles. But you know, maybe you've got an area of damage that perhaps a dermatologist might be digging out of you. That really supports it in helping get things to go again. And again, obviously the Renew 28 that most of us will use morning and evening, but for any other need, I mean, to me, that's my kind of first aid kit. You know, if something itches or a bug bite or whatever, that is always in my handbag, and that is my first go-to. And it's an incredibly clean skincare technology. I'm not going to go into all of the benefits of it, but having done a lot of studies in skincare, because I used to own a spa, I was just blown away by what I saw, even though it wasn't something I was thinking about being particularly interested in. So anti-aging, we've talked about. Let's go to the athletic components. So endurance and strength and recovery and mental stamina, and why professional athletes, Olympic athletes, weekend warriors, or anyone who just wants to be athletic and energetic would really enjoy the benefits of what ASEA Redox has. Some of those studies that spurred this kind of interest in this field is looking at how fast and how long can mice run before they're on ASEA, and then putting them on ASEA and then repeating that test and actually finding that they ran 29% further. Well, I think it's fairly obvious that a mouse doesn't run 29% further just for the sake of it. So that kind of showed that what we have is the capacity to generate fuel from preformed fatty acids that protect the muscles of the athletes and make them, you know, these faster athletes and able to just practice and practice and practice without a lot of the downtime necessary for recovery that many athletes will appreciate without that lactic acid. But again, ASEA is made from salt and water, so obviously there's no banned substances in that. And, you know, somebody once said to me, you know, Olympic athletes are like the Maserati of the human world. If it's good enough for them, then it's darn well good enough for the average person. But again, it's not salt and water, it's actually redox molecules. And so don't get confused. Some people go down rabbit holes of, well, my doctor tells me I can't have salt because I'm on a salt restricted diet. This is not salt and water like the kind of thing people have on their diet that they need to restrict. And if you were taking an average consumption of 4 ounces a day, it's kind of like about a half a carrot or a slice of bread or a glass of milk. So no one's going to tell you you can't consume that. But this piece here, the building of your cells, the materials, what we've talked about so far is the labor and the inspection for getting materials to work and build. And so that kind of makes sense if you think about building a house. You know, we deliver those materials to the job site, but if laborers and the inspectors didn't turn up, then it wouldn't become a house. And this was my field of building cells through nutrition. So I knew all about this, but it became that piece of like, what if these redox molecules can make a much better outcome for what I'm giving somebody? But 3 years ago, they had spent a long time looking at how do we put in good nutrition that is synergistic with those redox molecules and is of really high quality, because it's important that as you build every new cell, you put in top class quality materials. And so what we have is the ASEA Via Source, which is a whole food micronutrient complex. I'm not going to go through them in depth because there's a huge amount of information. If you're learning about this tonight, ask the person that's invited you to show you the detail on these products. So that is, you know, often the equivalent of about $500 worth of complex, intense nutrient support for the body. And we need that nowadays, because it doesn't matter how good you are about what you eat, there's just nothing in our food any longer, and there's no way we can supply everything we need by just general diet. Biome, which does that immune protection through the bacterial balance in the gut, really important at this point that we have really strong immune protection. Life Max for that active lifestyle, supplying of that vitality nutrients to go along with the signaling. And then the Omega, the native heart and brain complex, that's totally essential for every human being on the planet nowadays. We all need those for good cognitive function. And we know that it's connected to many, many chronic diseases if there's a deficiency. So organic, whole food, non-GMO, vegan, apart from the Omega, which is made from fish. And so lastly, I want to come towards the end and talk about the company. Why are we a legacy-driven company? Verdis Norton, who you see here, who's the founder, along with his son Tyler Norton, was the person with the vision to see that this company that actually had been researching but running out of money and going bankrupt had something very significant. He got to use one of those little machines where they were generating the molecules. He was drinking them, and he was beginning to feel at least 10 or 20 years younger. He knew that they had something, but when the opportunity to do a financial investment and take their patents and their research that they had at that point and see if he could make it something that he could just invest money in and then sell it to a pharmaceutical company, he took what they had and gave it to Gary Samuelson and said, tasked him with discover exactly what they've got here, and let's see if we can create something that we can invest and sell. And I want you to go and look at amazingmolecules.com. Not only is there a really great video there on some really amazing experiences that people have had from using this technology in their health, but also a lot of doctors, probably about 14 different doctors, talking about the science of redox and why it's so critical to us in terms of DNA replication and just every function in the body that wouldn't take place if we didn't have them. But go and look at the ASEA Genesis, because that's a really important piece. It's the pivotal point of why this company didn't end up selling out to the pharmaceutical industry and taking an 8-figure check, but actually pivoting and keeping this available to the people that they were beta testing it on, whose lives were changing dramatically as a result of it. And it was a case of, if they sold to the pharmaceutical company, the company wanted them to close down and take this product off the market. And Verdis knew that it was just too significant to those people. And so this is a really amazing story. But what's interesting is also that his background is very much a traditional background, from chief strategist and CEO for Kraft Foods, who ended up in a field of direct marketing that was not his background at all. But it's really a wonderful story and a really important reason why this is a legacy-driven company fulfilling his goal to simply get this out as quickly as possible to everybody on the planet so that people could benefit from it. This is the production facility. It's where the pristine saline goes through multiple stages of cleaning and cleansing in preparation to go through a 3-day process of electrical alteration, basically. And so what they're doing is just taking those molecules and recreating identically what's inside of us. So you can't be allergic to this because it's literally the same thing. And neither, for that matter, can you actually have any drug interaction, which is really rare. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you take supplements. Every supplement still has the possibility of interaction with something else, as does a drug. Founded in 2009, it took them about 2 years to decide how to get to market. They produce all of their product themselves. Nobody else does it. I mean, all of this technology is patented and covered, patent protected. So obviously they don't want anybody else handling it. And it has a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you can drink everything that you consume or you purchase in that first order, and they'd still give you your money back if you decided it wasn't for you. But I think you'd be very silly to stop at that point. Third-party batch tested, as we talked about. It's an FDA registered facility, and GMP and NSF just means that they go the extra mile. They spend a lot more money to make sure that their product is top quality. They've done over 800 million to date. So when people can say, well, it's just a scam, it's just salt water, let's be realistic, all right? You can't have a company that's been around for 10 years and sell $800 million worth of product and only be selling salt water. This is a different field. It's a different category. They've been very steady about how they brought it to market, and gradually the word is getting out. And you can see from going in 2018 to 126 million to 2019, that nearly a doubling of sales, that the word is out. We're really starting to see this mushroom out there. So it's a really great time if you're looking at a plan B that maybe you didn't put in place and you wish you had because of all the challenges that we're having at the moment, or you want to start one now for the future so that you have some control over your safety and your security financially, then this is a great moment to be part of a company that is still the only one in the market. Nobody else has what we have. And so that's a really great thing that I loved about it, because I don't have to say, well, this CBD oil is better than that CBD oil, and try to explain why your product is better or different than somebody else's. Nobody else has what we have. Even after 10 years. And they have 34 distribution centers around, the distribution countries, so they're shipping all over the world, so you can help lots of people with this. And they deliver direct to the door of every single consumer, so we're all the same. So if you've looked at marketing in other companies, and a lot of other companies want to sell you a whole bunch of stuff and you've got to handle a whole bunch of stuff, that is not this company. None of us really consume anything more than what we're personally taking. So that is the great piece about it. And ASEA's mission is more than simply changing the lives of other people and being an influence for good throughout the world. It is actually about people and principles over ego and economics. And that was a really intriguing piece to me when I started to research. Well, I know that it's helping people, especially when I took a client who had a tick-borne condition from 30 years ago and co-infections that had gone on and was no longer able to work or think clearly or sleep properly and just had no life. And I flippantly, not really flippantly, but curiosity-wise, I kept reading about this, and I hadn't even met her yet face-to-face, and I called her up and said, I'm reading about some science here, and this is a whole new field that you've never used before. It might be something you want to give a thought to, and maybe you want to use it before you even come and see me. Who knows? It could be the missing link. And it was that shift in 30 days of a 90% improvement in her health. It was so dramatic and so unexpected for me that I knew that I had something really important in my hands here, and what made me look at the company. But that statement at the bottom was kind of curious. Was this just a tagline, or a fancy terminology, or a little statement that people put on their websites, but it's not what they actually live out? And when we started to investigate the company, I really felt like, no, this wasn't just a fancy terminology or a fancy statement that somebody put on a website. This was something that every single person that I met lived by, and is really very unique in terms of this industry. So you have all sorts of opportunity to share this with people and influence and improve their life. And I'm sure there's someone out there who's looking for this. When I decided, did I want to take my time to do more than simply share it one-on-one with the clients that came through my office? I knew that would take time away from my business, so I had to decide whether that could also compensate me on the other side of it when I swapped my space of where I put my time to earn my living. But in the first 2 years of having just gone out and constantly shared with friends and family and people that were just interested and proactive in their health, this became an organic thing that I couldn't stop, because you know what, when somebody's life changes, they want to share and tell somebody else the good news and hopefully help them. And so in those first 2 years, we moved from just being an associate to becoming a diamond in this company. And it has change the way that we're able to help people. So the money is not important, is what it could represent for you. And at this point in time, I think there's a lot of people that wish they had a plan B in place as they're struggling with this huge impact that's going on in a global way, and hoping that the government are going to come in and solve at least some of their financial challenges. But maybe it's that perhaps you're comfortable despite everything, and you would love to bless the lives of other people. You would like to donate your money to some other charity. We have people in here who are millionaires who don't need this money, but do it because it's the impact for the other person that is the driver, and much more important than what it does for us. If you're motivated by helping other people, then the ASEA Foundation, the Advancing Life Foundation, has philanthropic projects that we support. We've had a 3-year project in Ecuador, which is kind of coming to the end of building a secondary education facility. We support Operation Underground Railroad, which is the sex trafficking throughout the world. And our latest project is Vision Cambodia, in terms of bringing in rural communities, water, and micro business development. The other side of what it gives us is friendship. And at the time when we're all asked to be social distancing, which I think is more about physical distancing, we get to make friends and we get to make memories, which is the goal that Verdis Norton asked people to do if they engaged in this, to use things to make memories. And so we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of ways that ASEA compensates people for taking their time and energy to be willing to do this work and share and bless the lives of others. And those create memories that last a lifetime. So maybe that's what you're looking for, I don't know. But at this point, I'll just ask you one of 3 things, you know, does this make common sense to you that you could reinsert something that's inside your body and take you back to a better state of optimal health and maybe protect yourself in the best way possible? Maybe you want to be a consumer, and that's fine. We need consumers. Company needs consumers because that's what our life is about, blessing other people with good health. I would suggest forget the retail. I don't ever sell it to retail to anybody. I never recommend that they get an account. And in fact, you're not even buying it from each individual person. We each all have our private accounts with the company. Go for the preferred customer, get it at the cheaper price. You're going to save yourself $30 per case. And you have that 30-day money-back guarantee, but be realistic. We're not doing a drug that's going to push your body here. We're actually doing something that is foundational to the way that your body functions, and we're supporting your body to do what it should do normally and do better when it did it as a younger person. So commit to 90 days because we want to benchmark everything, and we want to track the changes as they go through. We would start with a lesser amount. What it talks about on the bottle is 2 ounces twice a day in that first week, and then check and see where you're at 7 days. If you haven't started to see a shift, just go to the clinical amounts, double up, and it's really like refilling our gas tank until we get it full, and the body's going to work at its peak performance, and you're going to see the benefits. The longer you're on this is like having a constant repair and mechanism going on. You're optimizing that ability to repair on a daily basis. And if you speak to anyone, they're going to say the longer they're on it, the more changes they see, and you never know what they're going to be. Maybe you're interested, but you've got more questions, and we're going to shut down the PowerPoint in a second and answer any questions that people have. Or maybe you know that you'd love to be a consumer connector and you really like to help teach people about this new technology, because that's what we do. We educate people, and what they do with that information is up to them. This is not about selling them. It's about making sure that we educate and it makes sense for them if they choose to do this. Perhaps you'd like to create that residual income, and we can kind of help share how that can happen, because we do earn income from every product consumed around the globe. And this is not necessarily about who you know. It could be someone 7 or 8 people down the line who pass it on to somebody who does something amazing with this, but you're the person that took the time to start this whole process. So wherever you are, it's all good. It's whatever suits you. And I'm just going to stop the recording and going to open up for